Jamf Now is the easiest way to manage Apple devices in your organization. In this walkthrough, we'll touch on all of the high points of the product and give you the skills you need to get up and running with Jamf Now today. Now, beginning here on the device's dashboard, this is probably the first view that you ever saw when you first created your Jamf Now account. This will be your default landing page after you log into Jamf Now every time going forward. So the first thing you see when you log in is a quick summary of what your device ecosystem looks like. You can see in my device ecosystem, I have 13 devices, some mobile, some desktop, kind of a nice mix of different Apple devices here. Now, if I had more, perhaps a few dozen or a few hundred devices, the tile view that I'm looking at here might not be the best way to look for specific information. Instead, I can click in the upper right on this view toggle and change my view to the list view. It's really easy in the list view to scroll down these columns and look for a specific name or a specific blueprint or specific indicators depending on what I'm looking for that day. Now I'll change back to tile view to kind of talk through the rest here and just click on one of these to take a more granular look at one specific device. So we'll click on Accounting iPad right here. And now I'm presented with a whole level of information that I did not see previously. I'm seeing who this device is assigned to, how it's functioning in its current state, and even some pretty granular device data like the serial number, which is automatically pulled from that device and tied to warranty coverage right here in Jamf Now. Now at the bottom, I want to touch on two things. First of all, activation lock, which may be a new term for you if you've never encountered this from Apple directly. This is something that comes directly from Apple, and we're mirroring that language here in the product. And what this is really another layer of security. I want you to think of activation lock as something that will make you more secure tomorrow than you are today. And here's how it works. If I'm given a device and I activate activation lock or turn on activation lock, it will ask me for my Apple ID and my Apple ID password. So I'll sign in, I'll authenticate, and then I'll just go about my day. So I'm doing some work, taking a client out to lunch. Perhaps I forget that device. Maybe it's an iPad and I leave it behind in the restaurant. Well, that's a pretty big security risk, right? And we really don't want that device falling into the wrong hands, maybe being wiped, and they try to sell that device or activate or access that device after it's been wiped. What activation lock does is it steps in right about there in the process, and when it is wiped, when you reactivate that device, it presents a lock screen, so hence activation lock. And it will say, hey, this device has been wiped and reset. You now need to re-authenticate with the Apple ID and password that you used to set up activation lock. This makes devices much less valuable as targets of theft and much more secure in the event that there is lingering company data on those devices. So what you can do is, if this is your device and you still have it, you can go ahead and re-authenticate very quickly, right? Type in your password, get back into your own device, and get on with your day. If this was a malicious actor and they have your hardware and they're trying to get in, it's now locked down hard and they cannot access that device anymore. It really kind of secures that company piece of hardware. The other really nice thing, and this is a really big time saver of activation lock, is that if somebody leaves the company or changes teams really quickly, and they leave or change teams so fast that they don't have time to disable activation lock, it used to be a pretty big pain because activation lock is really a secure protocol. So you as the IT admin had to find a way to work with the manufacturer, get around that. It was really kind of a long, drawn-out process. With Jamf Now, we have something called activation lock bypass. It will generate a code right here within the product. It's very fast. You punch in that code on the device itself and it will bypass that activation lock and get you back into that device. So a very quick way to recover company hardware in the event that it is stuck behind activation lock. Now the second thing I want to talk about on this page is this right here, supervision. And what supervision is basically a heightened form of management inside of Jamf Now. Now, a lot of management can take place under what we call open enrollment. This is kind of your standard or hybrid form of management. And this is really common in BYOD, bring your own device scenarios. So if you have staff that are provided with iPhones and let's say MacBook Pros, but you also have team members that say, I really prefer working on an iPad. Maybe the company doesn't provide that, but I'd like to purchase one on my own with my own dollars and bring it into the workplace and do company email on that device. Well, the old workflow was to say, sorry, we are not going to allow your personal hardware to access company systems. It's just not secure, right? There's no way to enforce any kind of security standards. With Jamf Now, we have great news. Open enrollment is really that hybrid approach where we say you can bring your personal devices into the workplace, your personal Apple hardware, and we can enforce some basic security standards, push applications, basic functionality like that. But we also respect that you are the admin on that device. Now, the flip side of that coin is if you need higher permissions and a deeper level of control over that hardware, the answer is supervision. And supervision, I really want to recommend this if your company is paying for hardware. So if there is company hardware being deployed in your organization, supervision is the way to go. Now, how do you supervise devices? It happens through a program that's called Apple Business Manager. So write that down, do an internet search, and take a look at Apple Business Manager. That is a free program from Apple specifically for businesses to support small and medium and large businesses in using Apple hardware. Now, you'll see a term here called DEP. This is the Device Enrollment Program, and we'll touch on this in a bit, but what DEP is the mechanism within Apple Business Manager that allows you to supervise hardware. So if you need supervision, and you'll see a number of restrictions and so forth today that have a little label on them, and it'll say in text, supervision required. If you need that, and that sounds like something you need for your business, take a look at Apple Business Manager. Again, just do a Google search, you'll see it there, create a free account. That will really be worth your time to gain access to the power of supervision. Now moving on, we have a few other tabs here that I will just briefly show. The Details tab, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of this device. The Notes tab, which is really useful for kind of a running ledger of what's happened to this piece of hardware, who's taken possession of it, when we've done repairs, hardware swaps within that device, things like that. You can kind of keep a running list of the lifespan, if you will, of that device right here. I can also see every application deployed to this piece of hardware on this list, conveniently shown right here. Now moving on down our main sidebar here, our side menu, I'll click on Blueprints. And Blueprints, if you've never encountered them before, are really the core of Jamf Now. This is a convenient way to bundle together three very important things: applications, security settings, and restrictions. So those three things and more are contained in each one of these blueprints. And think of a blueprint almost like a bucket. So I construct this bucket with applications, security settings, and so forth, and then I set devices in that bucket and they adopt those settings. They download automatically those applications. So I have 4 blueprints here. You might have one, only one for your entire team. You might have 99. There is no limit on the number of blueprints you can have. And creating them is really easy. Click here to make one from scratch or create one from a template using this button on the right. So I'll click into Sales. I will just click on this blueprint right here, and you'll see a number of sub options appear on this brand new sub menu, right? And we'll kind of move through this together. So the first, what I default to is applications. And what this is telling me is every device on this blueprint is automatically downloading these applications wirelessly, over the air. They are just downloading these from the App Store because we are telling them you need these apps. And they'll go and find them and download them on their own. So I have Box, I have DocuSign. What if I don't need one of those apps anymore? Well, it's very easy to remove one. Click on the ellipses and click Remove. What if I need something that is not listed here? Well, the good news is under my Apps menu right here, I have a number of high-level connections already made with the App Store. And let me be clear, anything that's available in the App Store, you can bring into Jamf Now and deploy that to all of your devices using Jamf Now. So I already have Box and I already have DocuSign. What if I need something else? I will click on Add an App right here, and you can see every connection that I have already made with the App Store is listed right here. Now again, you're only seeing the ones that I have chosen to connect, right? So maybe I need Evernote. What if you rely on a different piece of note-taking software? You might not see that here, right? Well, good news, we can just go over to the apps menu, click there, and make that connection to the App Store. It's really fast and really easy right there. But once that connection is made on the apps menu, then you will see it appear in this list. And I could say Evernote, Event Board, and Add to Applications, and they would appear right here. The next thing on our new submenu within Blueprints is something called a web clip, and this is where we go to configure web clips that will deploy to every device on this blueprint. So I'll click Add a web clip. What I do first is give it a name. Maybe this will be Jamf Support, right? The next will be a URL, and this could be support.jamfnow.com. Great, so now I have a name, and now I have the destination, which is a web page. I can also give it a custom icon, and then click Save. What will happen is this icon will actually appear on the home screen or the dock of every iOS and macOS device on this blueprint. So a new icon appears, right? It looks a lot like an application just sitting there. When I click on it, what will happen is it will take me directly to this URL. And this is really important for two reasons. First of all, it's a huge time saver. So if your team goes to the same websites over and over throughout their day for quoting tools or vendor relations, accessing sales resources, technical documentation, anything like that, time cards, anything where you are going repeatedly to the same URL, this is going to be a massive time saver for your team. Now, the second reason this is important is because we can actually change this extension, and this is really interesting. Instead of only doing a URL, I can do something called a mail to link. So mail to with a colon, and then enter an email, and you can see that right here. So I have an email, support@jamfnow.com. This is our support team contact, right? And what I can do is enter this with that mail to in a colon prefix, and that icon will actually turn into a button that instead of taking me to a website, will pull up this email and fill out that to form automatically. And I can very quickly send emails over and over throughout my day if that's something that happens on our team or in our organization. Again, you see this in sales teams, in support teams. This is just really common kind of across the board. So any creative way you can think to use that, you are more than welcome to do so. We can also use a text to and a colon, and then enter a phone number right here and open a text message to this number. I can also do a TEL and a colon and then enter a phone number. And again, that icon will pull up a phone call directly to that number. This again is super useful for reaching out to vendors, calling a supervisor, staying in touch with a sales organization, or your home office, whatever it may be. You can think of really creative ways to use that multi-functionality of web clips across your entire organization, across many different teams. Now moving down to our third option here, this is security. And under the security tab, I will uncheck this to begin. We essentially have two options right here. The first is requiring a passcode. The second is enabling something called File Vault 2. And this is an encryption method that actually encrypts the entire disk. So you might have heard of encrypting a folder or encrypting a partition. File Vault 2 is Mac specific, and it's actually encrypting the entire disk. So very powerful. And again, kind of building on that philosophy of become more secure tomorrow than you are today, right? So check this box. It's a one check box. Click Save, and every macOS device assigned to this blueprint will encrypt its entire disk using File Vault 2. This is really nice because a lot of teams have to do this manually. This is something where you need to move through kind of one device by one device and manage those one by one. It can really be a time suck for teams that need to move around the office and do that one at a time, right? But with File Vault 2, that's full disk encryption. You can do it once, fire it out, and wirelessly over the air, all of your macOS devices receive this command and will engage File Vault 2 encryption on that device. The other option here up top is, of course, requiring a passcode. And this is a pretty standard, understandable thing. Now, that said, when I check this box, a number of sub-options appear. And I can make that complex, alphanumeric, tell that passcode to be a certain length, and so forth. Really kind of tailor how that requirement functions for my specific organization. When I choose all of the options here, go to the bottom, click Save. The next thing on our submenu on the left is email, and I think I speak for everyone outside of IT when I say that unless you work within IT, I don't think anybody really wants to see a mail server text field, right? This is not something that most people know what it is. And so what I can do is, instead of putting that on my Teams, I can pre-configure that right here within Jamf Now. So I'll choose Exchange, Google, Gmail, Yahoo, or something else. And depending on what I choose here, different options will appear within this window, right? So choose the appropriate account type for your organization, fill out the appropriate details, and then click Save. Same thing with Wi-Fi. This is something where, nobody loves walking around an office looking for a Wi-Fi password on a whiteboard, or trying to find the girl or guy that has that password stored on their local machine, right? That's kind of a pain. It's definitely not efficient on time. What we can do here is pre-configure access to Wi-Fi hotspots directly within Jamf Now. So I'll click Add a Wi-Fi network, enter the name, choose a security protocol, and then enter that password right here. And I can even check this box, automatically join this network, and then click Save. Very easy to do, very quick, very efficient, right here within Jamf Now. Now this menu, the restrictions menu specifically, is quite a doozy within Jamf Now, and I'm going to walk through this at a high level, but here's where I want to encourage you to grab a cup of coffee and take 5 minutes and go through this on your own. And here's why. I'm going to touch on the high points here today. We will move through each of these menus together right now, but there are a lot of options within this menu that are very granular, and they really apply to specific organizations. What I need you to do is, again, grab that cup of coffee and see which ones apply to your company and your organization. So take 5 minutes, again, move through on your own time after watching this video, and I think you'll find that that's a really good use of time, a really great way to familiarize yourself with all of the different options here. So first, beginning at the top, the Apps menu. I'll click this and you can see a number of options appear. I have a number of restrictions that are just very, very powerful tools, like disable installing applications, all methods, including Jamf Now. Disable deleting applications, disable deleting system applications. I can even, scrolling down here, start to turn off core parts of those devices, like disabling a camera, disabling FaceTime, Safari, and so forth. Really, again, core parts of those devices that ship with that hardware and with that software. If it doesn't make sense for your company, maybe you don't need Safari access at all, check this box and it is disabled. Under security and privacy, again, a number of options here. We have some higher level, more strategic options at the top that get a little bit deeper into how we use applications and how we kind of look at them from a security perspective. Read those descriptions on your own and you'll see whether or not those make sense for you. We can do things like disabling screenshots, some more advanced kind of newer technology scrolling down here like Touch ID and Apple Watch, a number of options with both of those. I can also remove the ability to wipe devices from the settings menu. So if I'm thinking, I really want to be the IT admin that wipes devices, I don't want my team wiping company data without my involvement first, right? Maybe I want a chance to make a backup, it's compliance, whatever. This is a great way, checking this box, to remove the ability to wipe devices from that settings menu on every device assigned to this blueprint. Network and cellular is really interesting. In fact, there are two options here that I think are very valuable. The first is Wi-Fi whitelisting. And what this means is you essentially blacklist every Wi-Fi hotspot by default. And you say you cannot access Wi-Fi hotspots by default, except any hotspots that we explicitly configure through this menu in Jamf Now, this Wi-Fi menu right here. And that would be whitelisting. So I'll say, every hotspot is banned except the 3 hotspots that I have configured on Jamf Now. Those you can connect to. So very powerful security kind of minded setting there. The other one at the bottom here is disable VPN configuration. This is really useful, particularly in the education space. If you're working in a situation where content filtering is key and you really need to create that kind of safe, walled off garden to make sure that you protect the integrity of your education network, whatever it may be. VPNs are designed in part to get around that kind of a system, right? And they're a useful way to do that. But again, if you work in education, you might not want that available to any devices that you're managing. That just wouldn't make sense. You want to protect the integrity of that network and that content filter, right? Well, we can disable that VPN configuration right here. With a single checkbox, you can no longer configure VPN on any device installed or, managed in this blueprint. Moving on down, Icloud and Siri. These are both options, I think, that are really useful if your organization does not use Icloud or does not use Siri. Some might, and that's great. But if you're sitting there thinking, we have our own Icloud similar system, or we just don't need an audio assistant like Siri, you can disable those, both of those functions right here in this menu. Email, pretty straightforward here. We are preventing changes to accounts. So if you'd like to set up the email account once in the email menu and then prevent the addition of new accounts, the removing of that existing account, or modifying anything that's already there, it's a single checkbox to make that reality. Wallpaper, a lot of times people like to have company-approved, kind of standardized wallpaper. You can push that wallpaper right here at the bottom with this wallpaper menu option, but with this restriction, we can prevent changing that wallpaper. And the final option here, this is actually a really cool option for IT teams that want to give themselves time to test new versions of iOS and macOS before making them broadly available to everybody in the company. And this is critical because sometimes, it's not common, but it will happen that new versions, brand new versions of operating systems will conflict with existing software and processes on your end. You'll see this from time to time where a third-party vendor is not quite ready for the latest and greatest version of iOS or macOS, right? Well, what we can do to make sure that doesn't bring any business processes to a halt is actually check this box, delay OS updates. And I can choose an interval from 5 days to 90 days to give myself and my team time to, again, test that new version of iOS or macOS before deploying broadly. So again, this is just a really nice kind of peace of mind function, but it's very powerful. So definitely take a look at this if you are someone that likes to test operating systems before making those widely available. This will just remove that option to upgrade from every device in this blueprint. The final thing I'll touch on here is single app mode, and this is really a key feature for retail, hospitality, anybody that needs a device really that functions as one specific task. So I might say, the iPad is a phenomenal platform, but what I really need is a point of sale system. I don't need iMessage, I don't need Safari, I need this point of sale application that I use to power my business. Well, that is the value of single app mode. I can choose from this list any applicable application. And you might not see yours listed here. That's totally fine. You can always add more later. But I'll say maybe DocuSign, right? Perhaps we will transform an iPad into a contracts iPad, right? Maybe it's for mobile signature out in the field. And all I want this iPad to do is be ready for DocuSign in my retail business, in my healthcare business, in my enterprise sales team, whatever that may be. You can think of a lot of applications with point of sale, with gathering customer feedback, operating at trade shows, a lot of different scenarios where a single purpose device makes a lot of sense. Give that some thought, configure the options right here, and then click Save. Now moving on down our main menu on the left, the next option here is the Applications menu. And what I want to say is kind of a twofold message here. First of all, what you're seeing are all of the applications that I have already connected from the App Store to this Jamf Now instance. So I've gone through and chosen a few dozen options here. I can scroll through and you can see things like Evernote and Expensify, very common applications within enterprise and even small and medium business workspaces. But what if you don't see the application that you need, that you rely on for business? Well, we click on Add an App, and then right here we can search for any application in the App Store. So I'll give you an example. One of our app partners is Dr. Chrono. And in fact, it autofills. I'll just choose Dr. Chrono right there, and we can search for Dr. Chrono apps. If I work in healthcare, I might want to take a look at Dr. Chrono applications, right? It would be a reasonable thing to look for in EMR solutions. So look at this. 4 of their applications pop up right here, and I'll click Add to my apps. Then it would appear back here on the main apps menu, and I can start deploying that via blueprints. So very quick to go through and search for any application I might need from the public app store to bring that into Jamf Now here and then deploy it with blueprints. The other thing I'll say is by clicking on Add an App, you will see a menu right here called Upload Your App. And this is a menu that only appears if you are a member of the Jamf Now Plus plan. You'll remember Jamf Now has 2 service plans, Jamf Now Standard, which is $2 per device per month, and includes almost everything in Jamf Now. But then there's a higher form of Jamf Now. We call it Jamf Now Plus, and that gives you access to 2 additional features, and that is custom iOS app deployment and macOS package deployment. And this is where you go to deploy custom iOS applications and macOS packages. This menu only appears if you are on Jamf Now Plus. So if you're on this page and you're saying, geez, I do not see Upload Your App, how do I do this? The answer is you need to change your account. And in the upper right, I will click on my name, this demo name, and then click on Account, and you'll see right here, Plan. I'm currently on Plus. If I needed to switch back to Standard, I could do that right here by clicking Switch to Standard. Make sure you're on Plus, and then again, you will see this option right here, Upload Your Custom App or macOS Package. Now, moving on down the main menu, the next option we see is what's called VPP, the Volume Purchase Program. Now, a quick caveat to this, VPP and DEP, these 2 options, have recently been bundled into Apple Business Manager. So Apple Business Manager is now the umbrella term for Apple services that are free for businesses. Both of these programs are super powerful, and they're both from Apple, and they're free. They're really incredible deals. Definitely take a look at them. VPP, specifically the Volume Purchase Program, helps you deploy applications in bulk across your entire org. So really a big time saver there. If you say, we need Box, we need Evernote, some kind of common things across the entire team, you can grab enough licenses, whether they're free or paid. You can grab all of those licenses in bulk at once and then start deploying them very, very quickly across the entire team. This second program, DEP, the Device Enrollment Program, is really useful if you are deploying new hardware or you want to manage existing hardware and bring it into DEP so that you can supervise that hardware. So again, VPP and DEP are now part of a new program called Apple Business Manager. Take a look, give it a search online, find that program and sign up. It's free, takes about 2 minutes to sign up, and it's a very good use of your time. You'll be glad you did. APNS is something you'll have to renew once a year. You can see kind of a sample APNS page right here. This is just an authentication between you and Apple. You really need that kind of secure handshake between you and their services. That's what this is doing. Open enrollment, again, this is the best way to allow bring your own device. You enable it by checking this box. You can set an access code and then choose how long you want this essentially enrollment portal to remain open. You can change that right here, uncheck this box to shut down that portal, click Save to confirm that action. And the final thing I'll touch on in this product walkthrough is teammates. And what a teammate is essentially the ability to invite a colleague or a supervisor to co-manage Jamf Now alongside of you. This is really useful when you've got other people that are stakeholders in the management of Apple technology in your business, and you want to invite them to be fellow administrators, and that's key. They will be admins in Jamf Now, so only extend invitations to trusted colleagues. But when you choose to do so, it's really quick to do that. Click Add a Teammate, first name, last name, email, and click Invite right there. Very fast, very easy. So that is a walkthrough of Jamf Now in a nutshell. If you still have questions or concerns, don't hesitate to reach out to our support team. We are always standing by, ready to engage with you to walk through in as granular of detail as you need to make sure you succeed with Jamf Now. So thank you for being a part of the Jamf Now family. Happy management. Take care.